Thought I hit the unpause. So here is the first slide set that I shared. So who needs budgeting and planning? And then a lot of this I just went over verbally. So this is just what I went over just now. So these are the slides that I wanted to, like I said, went over. So you didn't miss any of the data that was, or any of the information that was here. So these are the slides. So what you should be seeing is a slide that says demonstration of stage budgeting and planning. So can you see that, Max?
We do, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I am going to, everybody should see, I'm going to go back to the desktop here. So I'm going to log in here. This is sitting on my desktop as an icon here. So Sage Budgeting and Planning is going to be installed at your location. It's just like Sage 300. It uses the SQL Server database to store and back up the information. So when I log in here, you can log in as the as an administrator or a user that has access to make changes to the Sage budgeting, and you can have multiple companies. So I can have different configurations as well. So if you have multiple companies or databases set up in Sage 300, you can log into each one of them. The first time you actually log into a company that you have set up, what you're going to do is, what you're going to see is this Select GL General Ledger. So as you can see, you can actually choose Sage 300, and then we have this Quick Start Assistant. So this is what we added recently that allows you to go in and have a direct access to your data in Sage 300. So it will pull in your GL accounts, your entire chart of accounts, as well as your figures, so your balances will come in as well. So I'm going to just log in here, and I'll just go over the budgets here. So what you'll do is set up your company first, and then you'll log into one of the companies, and your budget plans are set up here based on the templates that you choose. So we have some out-of-the-box templates. If I go up here to plan and create basic budgets here, you can create your own budget template based on a budget that makes sense to you. Now, these are just jumping off points. So you can start here and define your plan and then modify it further. So it's really meant to be a starting point here. So you can verify your account section ranges, which accounts are revenue, cost of goods sold, expense, and salary related. And we give you up to 12 budget templates to use out of the box. So you can start with one of these budgets, or you can create your own template. So if you don't see one that quite matches what you're wanting to use, you can create your own. But keep in mind, these can be starting points. So for example, the zero-based budget means that the user has complete control over each budget period by period. So there's a description here, and if you click on details here, you can see kind of a thumbnail description of this type of budget. So this type of budget is very easy. It allows you to go in and put in the budget figures. Now you can see the actuals, but the actuals for the previous year are really more for viewing and for reference. The budgets are not based on it. So this budget here gives you the most control. And when you go into this budget, you'll see the budget fields in blue. So the budget manager knows exactly where they need to go in and put in the budget figures. And then if you want the system to calculate a little bit more and have the budgeting based on actuals, and then with a period by period, so month by month adjustment, then we have another template here. So this one allows you to use the actuals, and then it will put in, for example, percentages over the actual. So you can use a global assumption sheet to hold that information. So these two right here, the baseline as well as the global assumptions period by period. These are two of the most commonly used budgets based on a couple of decades of actual experience with customers that create their budgets. And then we also have a budget that does actual versus variance reporting. So you can create a budget or select a budget template that will look at the budget for the previous year. You look at actuals and look at the variance. So when you're forecasting for the next year, you can actually see how well you hit your targets for the previous year and give you an idea of what you should budget for the next coming budget period. So these are all templates that you can use. And again, these are just examples of what the budget would look like, so you can easily envision that. So when you go ahead and select one of these templates here, so I'm going to select the baseline with the period, and you click on next. It will look at the counts and the way the segments are set up in your Sage 300. So if you have division set up as your second segment and region as your third segment, you will see that here. So it knows it knows how your Sage 300 GL chart segments are set up, and it will ask you if you want to mirror that over here in the budgeting and planning. Now keep in mind, you can have additional segments that are not set up in Sage 300 that you can set up. So maybe if within each region you have also a department, but you only want to track that in Sage budgeting and planning, you can do that here. So you're not just limited to the, say, 10 segments that you have in Sage 300. You can have additional ones, and you can set up your budgeting start date based on your fiscal calendar year or fiscal year or calendar year. So you can have as many different templates as you want. But keep in mind that each template that you create will have all of these, all of this tree view, so you can see all of your regions. And then you also have what we call a global assumption sheet here. So if you wanted to do something such as increase revenue by 5% or 3%, you can put that here and click a button and save that, and it will reflect that change across all of the other budgets that you set, or the budgets that are looking at this particular assumption sheet. Now you can also put in other calculations and rates such as head count, pieces of equipment. So anything you want to track and perhaps create a budget on, you can put here in your global assumptions, and of course reference that from within your budget plan sheets. So we call them plan sheets interchangeably with budgets. I'm going to go ahead and log into one of these budgets. So as you can see here, for this particular budget, I've just got an override budget figure, so it makes it as easy as possible to create your budget. So I've got sales, accessories, for example. These GL accounts are coming in from Sage 300 on the left-hand side. And if I want to go in and I want to see my prior year actual, I can click a button and all my actuals for the previous year can be viewable here. So if I wanted to refresh this data, I can. And refreshing the data here, so if I clear that, it clears all of my subtotals, but when I refresh it, it will bring the information directly from Sage 300. And I can either refresh just this range or the entire set of budgets for all of my departments. And as soon as I refresh it, it brought in the numbers back in. So one thing you can do with regards to revenue and expenses is you can set up what we call sections. So you can control which particular GL accounts your budget managers will need to budget on. So if you don't want certain budget managers, or you want your administrative staff to budget your utilities such as rent or fixed costs, you can set up a section that is viewable only, or maybe just taken off completely. So the department managers are only budgeting based on those expenses that they have control over. So if you notice, there's this range that you can put. And it also makes it easy for when you're going in and refreshing the data here too as well. So you can refresh you can refresh any GL accounts that get added as well. So You can refresh it either from within this range or the entire plan sheet. So if I go back out here to, say, my summary division, which is my top division, I can go to plan processing and have it refresh. So if somebody has added new GL accounts as well, so you can have it update all certain sections. So you can say generate missing rows, and it will look to see if there were any GL accounts added within Sage 300, and it will automatically insert those new GL accounts into the appropriate plan sheets or budget. So that is one of the most powerful features, is the integration with your Sage 300. You're not having to go into, say, 10 different department budgets and add that new GL account. You just click a button here and it will instantly insert any new GL accounts that were added within Sage 300 to the budgeting and planning, and then you can create your budget accordingly. So this is one interface, and I have a couple of users set up. So you'll be able to set up multiple users that have access to only their budget. So you can set up the security for this particular user. So if I go into security here, you can specify which budgets they have access to. So see where it has checkbox here. I'm only letting this user, Bob, have access to this budget here. So Bob, as the budget manager or the user, can go in and log into this is what we call the web view interface. Now, with the Sage Budgeting and Planning, as a Sage 300 user, you get 3 free WebView licenses. So you can start downloading this and using it right away. You get up to 90 days to start to put in your license key. So we'll give you the free license key that you can key in, and then the budget managers can log in and put in their user ID and password, and they will see only the budget that you give them access to. So I'm going to refresh this data here and put in my password for Bob. And actually, let me go ahead and close that out and refresh that here. Put in Bob. And this is the web view that you're going to give your budget managers access to. So, for example, Bob has access to this. Now, you can check out the budget. So if somebody has already logged in and seen this budget or is using it, somebody else going in can only see it in read-only view. So if your budget manager has finished with their budgets, you can switch it over to read-only so that they can't make any additional changes. However, they can view the budget, and then you can give them access to actuals for the prior year, or you can turn on sheet security and turn that off. But if I go over here, they can put in their budget figures either period by period, or they can just put in their override budget for particular costs or revenue or expenses. So this web view here is a more secure version of the interface that you saw in the application. So this is, again, what the budget managers would see. And then when they submit it, they can go in and change the options. So they can actually change it to, or they can change the properties to check to complete. And when they set it to complete, right here, so see where it says status and progress, they can set that to complete. When it sets to complete, that you can actually email automatically the budget administrator so they know that their budget for each manager has completed it. So they would get an email in their inbox. So this web view is a powerful tool that you can make available to the web, to each individual manager. And then the administrator can go in here and do things such as create calculations. So if I wanted to go into my budget figures here, I can go into individual cells and create a calculation based on amount. So I can say, create the budget automatically for the next 12 months based on ratios of the actuals for the previous year. So you can actually look at previous year information and create a budget that has more expenses, for example, in the fall versus the winter, or the end of the month versus the beginning, or the end of the year versus the beginning of the year. So you can create your own calculations and spread those across different months. And then if I want to, I can turn on protection. So if I turn on sheet security, you can make it so that you can change it so that the user only sees only those easily that they need to. So you can lock out the cells, and the cells that are view only are in gray, for example, and you can make the foreground white. But you can choose that protection to turn it on or off if you want for any given sheet. So it makes sense once the budget managers have created their budget that you turn on the sheet security so they don't make any additional changes. However, they can view it. So just like actual information is view only, then once they've completed the budget, it's view only. And then they can go in and put in, the administrator can go in here and view any changes that were made. And again, consolidate all of the budgets up here with the summary division. So the summary division is the consolidated budget. And again, to consolidate that, they just go into plan processing and click on consolidate. And it would take all of the, say, regions or departments and consolidate those into a single budget that reflects all the numbers across all of the budgets. So all of the changes would be reflected in the summary budget sheet. So with the Sage Budgeting Planning, again, you'll have all of these different templates that you can access and start with regards to budgets. You can go and create calculations with your budgets. You can have the web view available to your budget manager. So when they go in there, they can put in, they have access to only the fields that you give them access to. So again, if you don't want them to access payroll data or administrative costs, then you can make only the GL accounts or budget figures that you want to make available to them. Now you can even budget based on product information and pull that data from Sage 300 for, say, actual. So if you want to budget on your top 5 products, you can for the coming year, or in payroll data from Sage 300. But out of the box, you'll be able to have these 12 templates that you can further define and modify. So keep in mind that the templates were only meant to be a starting place. You'll want to make the budgets your own. So for example, the global assumptions, if you want to increase things like certain revenue accounts or salary accounts or expense accounts, you'll be able to go here. So this is just an example of one of the things that you can do. You can have your percentage increases here and then click a button and they'll reflect across all of your different budgets or certain budgets. So maybe certain templates you can budget particular GL accounts. So there's no limit to how many templates you can use and make available to your budget managers. But just keep in mind that you can set up the security. So when somebody logs into a budget here, it will ask them if they want to check it out and then check it in. So no two people are making changes at the same time. You have this check in and check out, just like a library book. You check it out. Somebody has it for a bit and then they can check it in. So again, no two people are modifying the same sheet at the same time. So it makes it easier to make sure that there's no overlap in that and those changes. And then again, with the Sage Budgeting and Planning, you can pull in information beyond just your GL account. So you can create what we call dimensions. So when you create a dimension here, you can pull in, say, product line information or payroll information. So you can create your own dimension that pulls in information from individual companies. So if you want to pull in product information or product line information from one company versus another, you can do that. And you can even create a consolidated budget as well. So if you want to create a budget that brings in budget information from multiple databases or multiple companies set up in your Sage 300, you can do that as well. So you'll be able to create consolidated budgets from across companies or within a single company that consolidates across different departments or divisions. So this is just one example that I have set up, is budgeting across my different regions that roll up to divisions. But you'll be able to go in and see that information once it's been rolled up into the summary department or division. And again, you can pull in your payroll information. So what some people do is they'll create payroll information or outsource it and then export it out, and then you can import it back in here. So payroll data, even if it's outside of Sage 300, you can import it using this nice and easy import tool. So you can bring in things such as your payroll expenses, your employees' information, all of that can be imported, as well as you can refresh your account balances and your chart of accounts from Sage 300 with the click of a button here. So this import listing, once you click on run here, it will refresh all of the budget templates that you have created in here. So there's no need to have to go in and manually do any kind of import. Now, once you have your budget information here, then you can also export it. With getting the information back into Sage 300, it's a little bit more of an export. It's not quite as streamlined, but you can certainly and easily do that. So you can export your budget figures to an Excel spreadsheet and simply import that into your Sage 300. So again, the import is streamlined. It comes in with a click of a button. The export simply has to go through Excel, and then from within your Sage 300, I have the 2019 version, you would simply go into your general ledger in Sage 300, and if you wanted to import in your budget information, you just go into your budget transaction window. So let me go into my my general ledger and go into let's go into my budget maintenance. And so here where you have your budgets, you can simply import the budgets using the import from, say, an Excel spreadsheet. So you can import your budget figures into, say, one of the 5 different budget sets within Sage 300. So you can, again, pull the GL data from your Sage 300, create it in the Sage Budgeting and Planning, and then export it and bring it back into the budget sets within Sage 300, so you can do reporting and analysis. So the Sage Budgeting and Planning, keep in mind, it isn't designed to be an analysis tool. However, you can bring it back into Sage 300 and then use reports such as FR or Sage Intelligence to create a nice budget report. So you can go into, say, Report Manager and create an actual versus budget variance analysis, or update a what we call a dashboard, or run a dashboard here. And Sage Intelligence, just like FR, is an Excel-based reporting tool if you're not using it. It's a very powerful tool that has some great financial templates for actual versus budget variance analysis, actual versus prior. And so it will launch Excel automatically and put that budget information in a spreadsheet. So you can go in and see. If you notice, I have 2 columns here, actual budget and variance, and you can drill down into that information. So the Sage Budgeting and Planning can go in and create the budget for you, and then you can use something like Sage Intelligence and use, for example, the dashboard or the existing reports to bring in the budget figures here. So you can see on this dashboard, I have budget figures totaled together here, and then individual budgets for my top expenses, which I can drill down into. So I can right click and click on drill down. And that way you have that information back in Sage 300. So again, this is the Sage Intelligence tool, just one of the tools for reporting. So the Sage budgeting and planning works hand in hand with the Sage Intelligence. So Sage Intelligence is used for the reporting analysis, and then all of your budgets can be created here within your budget, within your plan sheets, here within the Sage budgeting and planning. So again, these figures here, these GL accounts come directly from your Sage 300, and you'll be able to define the ranges of your GL accounts. So you can have multiple revenue subtotals, and multiple expense subtotals. So you can have a section for admin expenses or a section for payroll expenses, and you can make certain sections available to particular managers. So it's a very intuitive, very flexible budgeting tool. And you can also put in notes. So if I want to put a note here, made a change on this date, you can click on OK, and you'll see a little red dot here, and when you hover over here, you can see the note that, so if the budget manager wants to communicate changes that were made, they can simply put a note there, or they can put a note for the entire sheet, for entire row. So you can see it's highlighted, so you can, if you go to this view, or you can edit it, you can see the note that was made, so then they can communicate any information that was made. And then you can also, again, create a calculation for this particular GL account. So there's a lot of tools that you have available to you from here, from viewing information. So again, if you wanted to make the actual information viewable, you can go to sheet view options, click on OK, go into view, click on prior year actual, so you can see all the actuals for the prior year. So there's my 2020, and my 2021 is my budget year, but you can see all of the actuals going across here. And you can budget based on a trend, for example. So if you want to base on a prior year trend or a 3-year trend even, you can do that. So your budgets are very flexible as far as what you're basing it on. If you want to just go in and put in a budget figure and make it very easy to make for one single field and then have it calculate the budget for the next 12 months, you can do that. Or you can just go month by month and put in the budget figures. And so again, you'll have a lot of flexibility from within each budget itself. So I wanted to go in and show you where you can find more information about the budgeting and planning. We have some pre-recorded videos that can help you get started on learning the Sage budgeting and planning. They're all posted out on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com and go and click or key in Sage budgeting and planning, you'll see our pre-recorded videos. Some of them are just a few minutes long. Some of them are very high level, just a few minutes. And then some of them are longer, say an hour long. So you can see different types of recordings. If you want to see a budget report or a basic introductory recording, you can see that. Or if you want to see a more advanced one, or if you want to see one regarding installation. So we have all of these recordings posted out on the YouTube that you can view at any time. You can start and stop it, and that way you can just go ahead and get started and start learning about how the budgeting and planning product works. But we make it easy as far as using it right away. So you can install it and contact your business partner, Acumen, for help on getting it installed and unlocked. And they can certainly go in and make sure you have the ability to go in and help you when you're ready to get this installed. So again, Acumen Information Systems, it would be the ones to help you with the installation, with the implementation, and also if you wanted any pricing with regards to licenses. This is a very powerful product. You can start using it right away, and you get the free license of the application. So the login here is free, and then you get up to 3 WebView licenses. So that's this view here where you log in from an Internet Explorer browser window. So 3 WebView licenses are free. You can start using it. You have up to 90 days to put in your license keys. And we will give you the free license keys when you're using the Sage 300 Cloud product. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the lines to any questions, or if you wanted to type in any questions in the chat window, go ahead and click on chat up at on your Zoom options there at the top.
Thank you very much, Leanne. Also, if you guys have any other questions that you don't feel comfortable asking right now within the webinar, just shoot us an email here at Acumen, and we can definitely answer that privately for you. But it does look like we have one question that's just come in. Leanne, how is Sage Budgeting and Planning licensed?
So it's actually licensed. That's a good question, because Sage 300, as you know, is licensed. Is concurrent licensing. So Sage 300 has land packs that you can purchase. The budgeting and planning licensing is separate from your Sage 300 licensing. So you would need to calculate your licenses that you need outside of your Sage 300. So how the licensing works is it's basically concurrent. So you can set up users that can share a single account. For example, if you want certain budget managers to be able to access a particular department, they can share that. However, you do need to set it up so it's named. So let's say you have 3 licenses for Sage Budgeting and Planning. And each license is user 1, user 2, user 3. So if you set it up that way, multiple users can log in as user 1 or user 2 or user 3. But if you have up to 3 licenses, you wouldn't be able to set up any more than those users. However, multiple users can share a single login, just like with Sage 300. So you can have an admin user and have multiple people, like 2 or 3 people, be able to log in as the admin user. But if you only have 1 license, you would not be able to set up more than just that 1 license. But again, just like with Sage 300, they can each share it. But the only difference is it's limited to the amount of individual named users is limited to the amount of licenses you have. So again, if you have 3 licenses, you couldn't set up more than 3 users or 3 named 3 names in the Sage Budgeting and Planning, but multiple people could effectively share a single user or a single login, as long as they knew what the login was. So it's a bit different than the concurrent users that you set up in Sage 300. So in Sage 300, you could have 10 users, but only have, say, 5 land pack licenses, and those 10 users can log in. As long as no more than 5 people are logged in any given time, then they can share those 5 licenses in Sage 300. In Sage Budgeting and Planning, you wouldn't be able to set up any more than, say, the 5 users, but multiple people can log in as, say, an admin user, as one of the users. So that's kind of how it's different from the Sage 300. So it's named users pretty much, but each name, you can set up one of the, say, user login information. You can have multiple people log in there. So it doesn't really look at the individual workstation. It's not like Sage Intelligence, where it's looking at the individual workstation that's logged in. It's only looking at the login information. So for example, if you had a user like I have named Bob, and 2 or more people have Bob's username and password, because Bob manages a department, so you have maybe a couple of people that access his department, they can go in and log in as long as they have his username and password. So it doesn't look at the individual workstation license, it looks at the username. So you'll have as many usernames as you have licenses for the Sage Budgeting and Planning. So you'll have 3 web view licenses. So you can set up 3 users as web viewers with the Sage Budgeting and Planning, and then you get 1 application license. So again, the web view users can be 3 separate users that you can set up. They'll put in their username and password, and then they'll view only, you can set it up to view only their budgets that you set up. So hopefully that answers your questions with regards to licensing.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Leanne. We'll just wait another couple of minutes to see if anybody else has a question, but while we wait, I'd just like to let everybody know that if you would like to view this webinar again, feel free to log on to our YouTube channel. If you just type in Acumen Information Channels on YouTube, then our channel will be the first thing that pops up. We always upload all of our webinars probably a day after the webinar is actually taking place. So if you'd like to go on there and rewatch something or re-listen to something, then feel free, you can do that. So it doesn't look like we've got any more questions coming in, Leanne. I'd just like to say thank you very much on behalf of Acumen, and thank you to all of our attendees who joined us today and got to watch a bit of budgeting and planning. Again, if you have any questions that we weren't able to answer today, just shoot us an email here at Acumen, and we'll be happy to get back to you on that. So thank you, Leanne, and thank you, everyone.
You're welcome, everyone.
You guys have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye.